What is up, guys? Virgil here for JRPG Central, and today we're going to be finishing off the Q&A that we started about a week ago, where I asked you guys to give me any kind of questions that you guys had. Turns out you guys asked a ton of questions, and I couldn't answer them all in just one video, so this is the second half of that series. And most of the questions from the first video actually ended up being mostly from Instagram, and most of the questions in this video are going to be the questions that you guys sent me on Facebook. So to all the people on Facebook, I did not ignore you. There were just a lot of questions and I didn't really mix them up for whatever reason. So anyway, hope you enjoy the video. Hopefully I can answer all of your questions to the best of my abilities, and if you guys enjoyed this kind of Q&A video, this kind of back and forth, I really enjoy it myself. Let me know, and maybe this is a thing that I can do like once a month, once every 2 months, who knows? Just let me know if you enjoy these down below. But anyway, on to the questions. John's Graphic Craft, I'm gonna assume that's short for John's, asked, first memory of RPG artwork. The first memory of like distinct RPG artwork that I can remember was probably when I got my copy of Fire Emblem for Game Boy Advance. When I was younger, I didn't get a whole lot of games brand new, and my main system was the N64, so I definitely wasn't playing any RPGs on that. But as many of you know, the GBA had a slew of amazing RPGs, and Fire Emblem was one of the first ones, not only that I ever played on the system, but that I ever played, period. And I remember when I went to my local Hastings, which is now defunct, if you guys even know what a Hastings is. It was kind of like a hodgepodge of like video games, movies, books. It was a pretty awesome store. But I went and asked if they had Fire Emblem, and they had one copy left. Sadly, this is not the exact same copy, but I remember getting this game, and when I was just holding it in my hand and looking at the artwork, I just was so excited to get it home and play it, and I still love this artwork to this day. Jonah Anton asked, if you had only one game to play for the rest of your life, what would it be? If we're talking strictly JRPGs, I'd probably go with like a Xenoblade Chronicles 1 or 2. Those are just so vast and they're so fun and so good. Yeah, I'm gonna go with Xenoblade Chronicles. I'm gonna go with Xenoblade Chronicles 2, if I get the DLC as well. Noble Rob 1 asked, what is your favorite Nintendo Switch game? It's a toss-up between Breath of the Wild and Octopath Traveler and Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Michelle Cristolia asked, and by the way, these first few are some of the leftovers from Instagram, so I'm getting to you Facebook people, don't worry. She asked, have you ever tried the Suikoden series, especially the first 3? These are gems. Sadly, I have not. I have Suikoden 1 digitally, and I have Suikoden 2 physically, but I just haven't gotten around to them. I've heard they're completely amazing, and I actually started the first one and just messed around for like 10 minutes, and I really dig the art style. And I know I would probably love them once I get to them, but they're on the list for sure. Also, I don't know if it's Suikoden or Suikoden. I like Suikoden more, I think that sounds cooler, but... TXKX Yami asked, any SNES JRPGs to recommend besides Final Fantasy VI and Chrono Trigger? Yes, actually. There are quite a few, especially if you're willing to get into some like fan translations, there are a ton of amazing JRPGs on the Super, besides just those two. For me, I would highly recommend Lufia 1 and Lufia 2, especially. Breath of Fire 1 and 2. Like I said, if you're wanting to get into like fan translations, I haven't played it personally, but Live a Live seems to be pretty great from what I've seen, and that's one that I really want to play too, so there are definitely other great games out there to play, but above all else, I would probably recommend Breath of Fire and Lufia. Gambit asks, who's your favorite JRPG character, and who, in your opinion, is the worst? I'm gonna give you 2 of each. Who's my favorite JRPG character? Not to harp on Fire Emblem again, but one of my favorite characters ever since I was a kid was Lyn from Fire Emblem. I've always loved her a ton. One of my favorite JRPG protagonists, though, of recent memory was Stock from Radiant Historia. I talked about it in the review, but he was just such a refreshing take on a JRPG protag. He was great, man. I really liked him. And 2 of the worst that I can think of, Vaughn was pretty terrible, and so is Vanille. So I'm gonna go Vaughn and Vanille. They both suck. EVTZ asks, will you consider doing a game room / game collection tour on your YouTube channel? Maybe one day. The problem with that is that my game room and my bedroom are not separated. It's the same thing. And I don't really know how comfortable I am with like recording my bedroom and uploading it for people to see. I'm probably just being weird. It's definitely not out of the realm of possibility, but probably not anytime soon. Hoodley asked, what JRPG have you put the most hours into by choice? As in, played more than necessary because you enjoy it so much. Even though this one's from my childhood, and I haven't put nearly as many hours into it as an adult as I have as a kid, this has to be Pokemon. I talked about it in the last Q&A, but I was born in the perfect time to be a kid who was just completely obsessed with Pokemon. And I did this thing where I would just play Pokemon, beat it, like beat the Elite Four, you know, do whatever, and then just start a new game. Just immediately. Just start a new game and do it again, and again, and again, and again. I don't know why. I've definitely put more hours into it than probably damn near any other RPG. Don asked, why is it that most JRPGs have great console play but fail when they try to go mobile? I think it's for a multitude of reasons. I think the budget for mobile games are not nearly as big as the budget for, you know, big AAA console releases. The controls is one of the most obvious ones. Though to your point, like, JRPGs aren't the most complex controlling games, so they really should work pretty well. And there are actually cases where it does work well. Like, from my knowledge, most of the Dragon Quest games that are on the phone are, I mean, yeah, they're mobile ports, but they're actually pretty decent from what I've heard. But if you're referring more to like Breath of Fire 6 or, you know, the new Arc the Lad that was recently announced, I think it's just a budget thing. I don't think they put the time and money into it because they know they're going to make their money back from microtransactions. They know it's a cheap cash-in. It's just the way it is. JRPGverse asked, are you more of a story plus character development over gameplay kind of person, or the opposite? Of course, it's ideal that both aspects are good, but if you had to pick a side, which would it be? This is a great question. And I thought about it, and I am almost always a story and character development kind of guy when it comes to JRPGs, but if I had to pick one, I think I would rather have a JRPG with a bland story and character development, but with an innovative battle system or gameplay. Because there are a ton of JRPGs I can play with amazing stories and characters and all that, but combat is a place that I feel like a lot could be done in the JRPG verse, for lack of a better term. So if I had to pick one, I think I would rather take a new game that was trying to innovate in the gameplay realm, even if the story and character development wasn't super great. John Condry asked, favorite RPG for each console? That, sir, is a great question, and too good for this video. That is going on the list. That will be a video. Stay tuned for that. Brian asked, what dead JRPG series would you most like to see make a comeback, not including mobile games? This is so easy for me. Above and beyond, I want to see Breath of Fire come back. Not just because Breath of Fire is awesome, but also Capcom doesn't have, like, people forget that Capcom not only had a JRPG series, but they had a great JRPG series at one point. And now something that's pretty sorely missing from their catalog. A new great Breath of Fire would be amazing, not only for fans, but for Capcom too. That would be amazing. So yeah, Breath of Fire, for sure. Chance asked, what's your favorite system to collect for? That would be the PlayStation Vita by a mile. I have over 100 Vita games right now, and I'm actually going for a complete NTSC Vita collection. It's a goal I know I'll probably never attain, but going for a complete collection, especially for something like the Vita, is really cool in my opinion. Like, yeah, the Switch kind of dampens the Vita a little bit these days, but I don't think people are going to forget how amazing the Vita is. I don't want people to forget how amazing the Vita is, and so that is why I am going to try to go for a complete collection. Plus, the little blue Vita boxes are so cute. I don't have one right now to show you, but they're so cute. I mean, come on, how can you not love those? Franklin asked, most ambitious JRPG ever made that was great and failed? Two-part question. So what is the most ambitious JRPG ever made that was great, and the most ambitious JRPG ever made that also failed? I would say one of the most ambitious JRPGs that ended up being great was Radiant Historia. I've talked about it at length in my review and such, but just the way that game works, the way that it has all these branching paths, all these points in time that you can go back and replay parts of the game, and it just, the whole game doesn't break, is pretty incredible. As far as the most ambitious JRPG ever made that failed, that would probably have to go to Final Fantasy II. I mean, coming off of Final Fantasy I, Final Fantasy II was incredibly ambitious. You're talking about a game that actually tried to have a story, and they completely tried to change up the way that your skills leveled up, and sadly, it just didn't work very well at all. I will say, like, the Game Boy Advance and the PSP versions of Final Fantasy II are leagues better than the NES version, but even those versions aren't super great. It's kind of the black sheep for a reason, but it was certainly ambitious for the time. William asks, favorite JRPG of the current generation? I honestly think this generation's been not bad by any means, but it hasn't been just completely, like, amazing for JRPGs. But my favorite is probably pretty easily Persona 5. While it has its issues, specifically in its localization, which is just one of the weirdest, just most strange things with Persona 5, is that of all things that could have been bad with the game, I would have never guessed that its localization would have been as messy and unpolished as 5's was. But that aside, it's still an amazing game. It's still my favorite JRPG of the generation, probably. Hadi or Haiti asks, why do you think that there is a lot of generic JRPGs these days that focus on generic style and action combat? And do you think that Octopath's success could make devs made more classic RPGs, or trying to create more unique JRPGs? And do you think that Atlas RPGs are better than Square RPGs now, before releasing Octopath? Okay, Hattie, you kind of cheated and asked 3 questions, so I'm going to give you 3 quick answers. They're cheap to make, maybe Square will, and they're flagships, talking Persona versus Final Fantasy, yeah. Lucas asks, any misconceptions about JRPGs that some people may have that get under your skin a bit? There was this one tweet I saw that was really stupid, I'll try to pull it up if I remember to, where this person was basically saying, like, if you liked JRPGs, you just low-key liked to play playable hentai. Like, it's not even... I would give it some validity if it was even kind of true, but it's not even kind of true. Like, if JRPGs are playable hentai games, they're the most boring hentai games I've ever played. But no, I think people think that JRPGs are more niche than they are. These days, with games like Persona 5, and especially Xenoblade Chronicles 2, which I think introduced a ton of people to the JRPG, I think it's not nearly as niche as people think, and I think it's only going to get more and more, mainstream. John asks, where is Bravely Default 3? Right here. Joshua asked, why did they ruin Star Ocean, and what happened to Suikoden? There was some weird stuff behind the most recent Star Ocean's development. I remember reading some articles about it, but I can't remember exactly what it is, but you should definitely look into that game, because there's some weird stuff with that game's history. As far as Suikoden, maybe Konami doesn't think that a Suikoden pachinko machine would sell super well, and that's why we don't have them. Eric asks, do you miss working designs? Yes. They made, like, bar none, the best physical editions of anything back in the day. Specifically on PS1, their stuff is my favorite that I own. They just put so much love and so much care into their products, and they kind of had a really good sense of humor too. I know some people don't like some of their localization choices, but they were a good company, man, and they really seemed to care about the product and what the customer was getting, and I do miss them. Michael asks, what is the most frustrating thing you have to deal with in regards to RPGs? I think cliches. When you play a ton of RPGs, and specifically a ton of JRPGs, there are quite a few cliches that are just bound to pop up. And after a while, they kind of can become grating. But in another way, you also kind of come to appreciate them. Like, there's this article, it's not even really an article, but there's this post, or this blog post, or whatever, where it's, I think, like over 100 JRPG cliches, and they're all amazing. I love them. I'll link them down below if I can remember, but, or just Google, like, JRPG cliches. It's so funny, and some of them are, like, some really, really deep cuts that you have to be the biggest dork to really appreciate, but I would say that's really the only thing that I can really think of. Matthew asks, what Final Fantasy game do you enjoy? All of them, except for 15. Ren asks, worst RPG you've played? In recent memory, Final Fantasy 15. Ni no Kuni 2 was pretty bad in my opinion. That's a game that, no hate. First of all, no hate if you like Ni no Kuni 2. That's totally cool. I'm happy for it. I'm glad you like it. But I don't understand any of the, like, mainstream critic reviews of that game. That game is so woefully average in literally every single way. It's almost as if it has to be by design. Everything. The music, the combat, the characters, the story. It's all either average or below average. And it's more insulting when you compare it to Ni no Kuni 1, which was a masterpiece of that generation. It's just, man. I'm still not over it if you can't tell. But, yeah. Retro Games PK asks, what video game genre is your guilty pleasure? When I first saw this question, I was like, I don't really have any guilty pleasure genres. And then it hit me. I totally have one video game genre that is a guilty pleasure. And that is golf games. Specifically, Everybody's Golf. I love Everybody's Golf, and I'm kind of starting to love golf, which is weird. It makes me want to go back and play like a ton of the Mario Golfs that I never played. The one on GBA was made by Camelot, and it, dude, looks and sounds just like Golden Sun. I know my friend Kyle loves that game, and that's one that I want to go back and play. But yeah, that is the probably epitome of a guilty pleasure genre for me. And for our last question, Andy asks, do you suplex the train or use a Phoenix Down? The correct answer, Andy, is you suplex it first and then use a Phoenix Down, just to really be a dick. Anyway, that is it for my second Q&A video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, be sure to give it a thumbs up. If you didn't enjoy it, be sure to give it a thumbs down. And like I said earlier in the video, if this is something you think I should do like monthly or bi-monthly, let me know, and, you know, maybe it'll be a thing. And on top of that, just in case it is a thing, if you have any ideas for what I should name my Q&A segment, please drop a suggestion down below. I'm trying to think of something, you know, like creative and punny, but I haven't really put much thought into it yet, but let me know what you come up with. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you all have a great day, and I will catch you guys in the next video.